Well, welcome to Open Door, and we're at the end of June or early part of July. And I want to thank you for continuing to check in. I'll say more about today's guest in a moment, but I'll have one more show after this particular shoot or segment, and I'll be addressing the introvert advantage. I live with an introvert. I think it's one of the most grossly misunderstood personality types, and I'm going to be doing my show on that. That's going to wrap up our July, and then I'm taking August off simply just to recoup and research and write. But welcome to Open Door, and I'm Bill Effler, and this morning I have a friend. Your husband and I go back quite a ways. We each have enough dirt on each other to bury one another. But Morgan, tell our viewing audience who's Morgan Kawakami, and just who are you?
Yeah, well, jokingly, I told you I think about that every day.
There you go.
But I'm a mom of 4 kids and a wife to a very busy husband. And I homeschool, and I'm a momager is what I like to call myself.
Let me hear that word again.
It's called a momager. Instead of manager, I'm a momager. So I do all things mom, run the house, keep everybody in line. And
I love that word. I've never heard it.
Yes, it's a full-time job, and I don't get paid enough.
Gee whiz.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how old what are the ages of your children?
So Willow just turned 9, and Milo is 6. He's about to turn 7. Rio just turned 3, and Margot's birthday is today, and she just turned 1.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
I just heard this before we went live that today was her birthday, and I was kind of going, man, and you are here. So you're getting a gift. So she does have a Venmo number. So if you want to send gifts, not I'm teasing. I'm teasing with that. So wife, husband, 4 kids, and Margot arrived on the scene a year ago today.
Yeah.
Do you remember that day?
Oh yes, like it was yesterday.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
No PTSD, just wow. But the reality is that this was a 4th child for you. I remember when Stephen told me that you were pregnant again.
Yeah.
I said, what is your understanding of a full quiver? And scripture talks about, the warrior whose, quiver is filled with arrows, which is a reference to family. And he laughed and he goes, yeah. So you just went along. Was it regular pregnancy for you?
My pregnancy was fantastic. And should I go ahead and talk about Margot being born? Or my pregnancy was great, and it was a surprise. I will say that.
Okay.
Yes.
So she's born, and was she immediately diagnosed with Down syndrome?
It was probably about an hour and a half after she was born that they started telling us they thought she had Down syndrome. And they basically actually diagnosed based on a blood test. So it took about a week and a half for the definitive answer. But shortly after birth was when they started telling us that they thought she had Downs.
What was your pediatrician's response to that?
Well, the pediatrician on the scene was not great, and it was just like a weather diagnosis from her. We had never met her. I don't even recall her name. She did not even ask our names. She just popped in and boom, 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 XYZ diagnosed and left. And we were in the hospital for 15 days and we never saw her again. So...
Wow.
Yeah.
To me, that professionally and relationally, that's a hard landing.
Yeah. It was a very traumatic experience. Not everyone has a traumatic experience, but it just happened to be ours.
Yeah. And I think what increases the trauma factor is that this came out of the blue.
Yes.
There was no in utero suspicioning that.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And I think this is one thing that I'm wanting the audience to hear today is just like, what is Downs and what's involved in that? But here's a case, 4th child, wonderful pregnancy. Margot is born, and she's born with Down syndrome.
Yeah.
And so this is a huge life interruption.
Yeah.
So I'm wanting you to, so in this past year, you've learned a whole lot. Probably, immediately you started reading. I know that you and Stephen both are readers. You value information. So I'd like you to pretend, if you will, that the listener, and let's say that they're not watching this, but they're out on a walk and they're listening to the podcast.
Yeah.
They know nothing about Down syndrome. I'd like you to give them Down syndrome 101. Yeah.
So I feel like we have a really good understanding and explain it really well because we have 3 other small kids. So when we were learning, we knew that we needed to be able to explain it in a very basic way without all the science and fluff and things that hurt your head.
Sure.
So when we first received the diagnosis, we did not even know ourselves what Down syndrome was. And so going home and after digesting everything, basically on an easy level to understand, all Down syndrome means is that everyone has chromosomes, everyone has DNA. It's what we're all made of. And out of your 47 strands of DNA, specifically on strand 21, they have an extra chromosome. So everyone has 2, everyone has a pair. But on that strand 21, there's an extra, which gives her 23. And so that's all it is. So what does that mean? It means Margot has different physical features. A big one is that she specifically has low muscle tone. So it doesn't mean that there's nothing that she won't be able to do. It's just it may take her a little bit longer to do those things. For example, she just turned 1 today, and your typical 1-year-old would be cutting teeth, would probably be eating food and sitting, and some crawling, some walking. Margot's not doing any of those things yet. So where we could choose to be saddened and grieving, we're choosing to celebrate the fact that we get our squishy little baby for a little bit longer. And we know how fast kids grow up and those seasons come and go. So we're just enjoying the fact that we feel we have our forever baby. We like to call her our forever baby, just a little bit longer. So, yeah.
You used a term that I want to say I remember Stephen sharing with me within the first couple weeks, and you used the word tone.
Yes.
Again, our folks do not know that term. Can you, using layman's terms, explain that?
Low muscle tone, the best way I've come to understand it is if you were sitting in a couch, a really comfortable, like you sink into the couch. It's not firm and hard. And you go to try to get up out of that couch without using your hands. You're trying to just get up and stand up. Well, your typical person may be able to do it on the first time, but if you're trying to, get up a couple times, that's kind of what low muscle tone is. Eventually, you get up out of the couch, but it may be a little bit harder for you to get up out of the couch.
Is that one of the reasons why she's not ambulatory yet?
Yes.
That her muscle tone, I'm using your language here, has not developed yet.
Correct.
So with a Down syndrome's child, the muscle feature is longer in developing.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. So it
Okay.
doesn't mean, once again, it doesn't mean she won't ever do these things.
Right.
It's just going to take her a little bit longer, and she's going to have to work a little bit harder to get those skills.
Do you think that her not being able to get around like her brothers and sisters, do you think that's frustrating for her at all?
No.
No.
I
Oh, wow.
think she loves, there's always entertainment at our home. So sometimes I think that is working a little bit against us because she's very content to just sit and watch and take it all in. She loves to be held. So sometimes I think even if she didn't have Down syndrome, I still feel like she wouldn't be crawling or doing these other things because she just is content to sit and watch and smile and let everyone hold her and just treat her like this little queen bee that she is.
So, talk to us about her relationship with her siblings. You've talked about you and being a momager, but what observations would you make about how the children's life has changed, and maybe conversations that got you thinking? Can you respond to that?
The kids are crazy about her. They absolutely love her. I really don't think they treat her any differently, and I love that about them. And I think that's honestly helped us digest the diagnosis a lot quicker because they just treat her like she's our baby.
Yeah.
They love her. They don't see her any differently. Every now and then they'll ask questions like, does she do this because she has Down syndrome, or will she be able to do such and such because she has Down syndrome? And so there's a lot of conversations that we have. Specifically, what I love about our 3-year-old is that she doesn't know anything, right? So in the beginning, that was something that I had to grieve because I had all of these preconceived ideas of what Rio and Margot's relationship was going to be like because they're so close in age. And, I had to grieve all of my expectations. But then several months back, it hit me, well, Rio doesn't even know that Margot has Down syndrome. So what I'm seeing right now is the same way that she would have treated her even if she didn't have Down syndrome.
Now, Rio is your 3-year-old, right?
Yes.
So are you saying that the 3-year-old probably doesn't have full comprehension?
No.
So for the 3-year-old, Margot's just a baby.
Yes, and Margot is her baby. If anyone's holding Margot, she'll say, Margot is my baby. And I'll say, no, Margot's my baby. No, she is my baby. She always wants to hold her and kiss on her. And so.
One thing I was touched by a couple minutes ago is that your children's acceptance of Margot was actually a healing balm for you and Stephen to, in a sense, they, not in a verbal way, but in an attitudinal way, they were saying, this is a fourth child.
Yeah.
And there's no difference.
Yeah. Yeah. So they,
what a gift.
Yeah, really. Along this whole journey, there's been a lot of things said to us, and some things go in one ear and out the other ear. And sometimes there's something that really sticks. And it was Margot's physical therapist that told me, when you look at all of Margot's DNA and genetic makeup, she said it's still all you and Stephen and all of your family. She said it's just that one chromosome that's different. And I just appreciated that because in the back of my head, I would always wonder, is she going to be more like this Down syndrome diagnosis and category? Is there going to be anything that's going to be like Stephen and I and her siblings? And so when she said that, I thought, okay, I don't know. That just brought me
Mm-hmm.
such peace knowing that everything else is going to be so much like Stephen and I and her siblings, except for that one
So,
part.
see, before the segment today, you and I talked about questions,
Yeah.
so you wouldn't be caught off guard. But 2 questions have come to me
Okay.
as you've been talking, and I think that they're fairly safe.
Okay.
So, one of them is, um, uh, what is something that a person should never say to a Downs family? A mom or dad or children. I mean, I'm sure you've heard a bunch of
Yeah.
everything from, well, you have 3 other children, and
Yeah.
I just would wanna
Yeah.
I think I'd wanna take them out and
Yeah.
so that would be one question,
Mhm.
something that you've heard that which is not really helpful.
Yeah.
And then secondly, I know that you guys are actively involved in a local church and a church plant,
Mhm.
which has just started within the last year,
Mhm.
really. How's the church responding to Margot?
Okay.
Just so those are
Okay.
2 questions.
Okay. So the first one, I would say specifically in the beginning,
Mhm.
because we were not in a great place
Of
with the
course not.
diagnosis. A lot of people in our religious circle kept saying, God chose you for this. You and Stephen are so special that God chose you specifically for Margot. And, Stephen and I don't see ourselves special or
Uh-huh.
different from anyone in
Uh-huh.
any way.
Uh-huh.
And so a lot of times we felt like looking at those people and saying, oh, well, I wish God had chose you instead.
Uh-huh.
And so,
Yeah.
because it changes your life.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you said it before we even started.
Uh-huh.
We love Margot and we wouldn't change anything ever.
Mhm.
But when you're in a hurting place,
Mhm.
to look at someone and say, oh, well, God chose you for this,
Mhm.
it really kind of messed with like my relationship with the Lord. It made me have to work through a lot of things.
Mhm.
That was not helpful, I
Mhm.
guess is what I should
I
say.
I don't even know how to interpret that question, quite frankly, or
Yeah.
that statement that you got chosen, for this.
Right.
This is a special assignment. I'm kind of going, well, then I would have preferred that you have this assignment,
Right. Exactly.
essentially. So,
Yeah.
does anything else come to mind regarding? Probably, these are well-intended statements,
I think so.
but people are stupid, quite
Yeah.
frankly.
Yeah. And I think when people don't know what to say,
Yes.
they just find words to
Yeah.
throw together that they
Yeah.
think might be comforting.
Yeah.
I would say the other big one was that some people were like, well, you'll still raise her normal like you raise your other kids and she'll be great.
Uh-huh.
And, there is some truth to that, but we have 3 other kids. And I will say we've had to throw that book out the window that raising Margot is really a lot different from raising our other kids.
Mhm.
And so that wasn't helpful either. I
Mhm.
mean, from the moment she came
Mhm.
out, it was not like raising our other kids.
This
So-
really brings to the table, a counseling idea, and that is, when in doubt, don't. If you don't know what to say, there's a variety of responses to
Yeah.
that. This is Margot, and she has Down syndrome.
Yeah.
If I'm hearing for that for the first time, uh, I can say, that's incredible. What's that like? So instead of downloading an opinion, asking a question is far better.
Yeah.
So the clock is ticking away here.
Okay.
So you mentioned being involved in a church and you use the term religious environment. What is this whole the advent of Margot? Okay, what is Can you speak to that through the lens of your faith? And you talk about struggling with some things
Mhm.
with God, and
Mhm.
because I'm sure that there's going to be a listener out there.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a very unique podcast.
Yes.
When I mentioned to people what I was going to be doing with you,
Yeah.
they went, "You're going to do that?"
Oh.
I said, "Well, somebody's got to."
Yeah.
In fact, somebody said, "Bill, the difference between you and most people is you do it or say it,
Yeah.
while other people don't," which gets me into
Yeah.
warm water. Okay,
Yeah.
but can you speak to this aspect of you and your faith? And
Yeah.
and yeah.
Well, little plug, our church has been fantastic. You asked me that. So
Uh-huh.
they've been great, very supportive.
Uh-huh.
Could not have really survived without them,
Mhm.
honestly. And for us personally, for our faith, Stephen and I have worked through a lot. We've gone to counseling on our own. And I think the biggest thing we had to learn in the beginning was that we had to grieve.
Mhm.
And you were one of the people that told
Mhm.
us that was that every loss has to be
Mhm.
grieved.
Mhm. That's right.
And although we don't look at Margot as a loss,
Mhm.
every parent has preconceived ideas
Sure
of
they
what
do.
their child's going to be like.
You bet they do.
And so we had to lay all of that down and
Mhm.
just,
Mhm.
accept this
Mhm.
is our life now.
Mhm.
And I think I could not have made it without the Lord. Even am I going into my prayer closet and having all these radical prayers? No. A lot of times it looks like a lot of crying
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
just feeling like he's putting it all back together.
Mhm.
And that's not always an eloquent prayer or this grand
Mhm.
relationship with the Lord, but just learning that he is really holding us and keeping us. And I don't always have the words. I
Mhm.
don't know anymore what our life ever looks like. And I've had to let go of all of that and
Mhm.
learning that it's okay. Receiving a grace for this season and just knowing that, we're going to make it.
Sure.
Yeah.
One of the things that's, and this is because of some writing I've been doing recently, is that really what we're talking about is relinquishing control.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of a theme that does come back regularly on
Mhm.
the podcast, but life was absolutely out of control for you.
Mhm.
You had no vote, no say, no voice. I mean, this is what it is.
Yeah.
And so then the concept becomes, how quickly can I accept reality,
Mhm.
not get over it, but push through it? And I think
Mhm.
that that's important.
Mhm.
So in the time that we have remaining, I will do this. I know that one of the things that's come out of this is your new book,
Yes.
and I, what author comes to a podcast and does not bring their book?
I know.
And so I say that because I was at a speaking engagement, out of state,
Yeah.
and I didn't have any books to bring because there was a printing issue with the publisher.
Oh, okay.
And the way that I was introduced was, what author do you know comes from out of state and does bring books to
Yeah.
sign? So I'm laughing at myself, but tell us about your book.
Yeah. So the book came about. It's a children's book. It's obviously about Down syndrome, and it came about because of our traumatic experience.
Mhm.
And when we were trying to figure out how to explain to our other kids what exactly Down syndrome was, we received lots of things in the mail, and
I bet.
nothing was great. If it was a kid's book, it was full of a lot of science, or the pictures were not great. Honestly, some of the pictures were a little bit scary.
Okay.
And Margot is beautiful and the cutest little thing. So I'm like, why are people depicting, them looking so scary? Anyway, so we just were sitting out on the back patio one day, and this was after Margot came home from the hospital, and we were
And how long was she at the hospital for?
15 days.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
And talking about all the things about Margot that we just loved. Her eyes, her little toes, all these different things. And we started rhyming with it for fun. And we thought,
Okay.
oh my goodness, we should write a kid's book. So we wrote it right there on the patio. She was probably a month
Wow.
old.
Wow.
And it was
I
a
did not know
family,
that.
yeah, it was a family effort. And I just kind of tucked it away in the notes on my phone and just thought, oh, maybe one day we'll do this. And it just happened. We kept coming back to it thinking, hey, we need to do this.
What I'm going to do is you're going to send a picture of the book to Caleb, who does the shoot for me.
Yeah.
But I'm also going to ask you to send a picture of that cute little bug.
Okay.
And we're going to put her up there too. And it would be neat for her, years down the line
Yeah.
to play the podcast for her.
Oh, yeah.
I just think, your kids could see it right now.
Yeah.
And see the momager.
Yeah.
And Stephen would go, I can't believe Bill did this. He would never call me by my first name, by the way. No.
I don't think he ever has.
Yeah, I don't think so either. So, okay, 90 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
If there's something that you would want to leave, my youngest daughter, she's pregnant.
Yeah.
She's due in January.
Yeah.
And she's all excited about that. But maybe there's a Downs family out there that just happened to find out about this. Because the podcast is going to go through a variety of different platforms. We've literally gotten hundreds of responses. I don't know if we've hit thousands yet, but we get a lot of traction.
Yeah.
But what is something you would like to leave a listener with?
Give yourself grace to not know what's going on, grace to be upset, grace to celebrate in the small things, and just one day at a time.
Mm-hmm. You use the word grace here a couple times today, and a definition that I heard was God's rest after condemnation ends. And I think we beat ourselves up.
Yeah.
Whatever the disappointment is.
Yeah.
The what ifs in life, and to be able to know that God stands above all of that is huge. And I think one of the things you're really saying to the listeners is be patient with yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
And another thing that I would throw in here is choose your friends carefully. Because people, even with good intentions, say some of the craziest things.
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
Thank you for sharing your heart with
great.
me and with our listeners today.
It's great.
This has been a very different show, but I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah.
Just like you wouldn't either.
I know.
Well, thank you for timing in and listening to us. And if you find meaning in this, or if you find have a friend that you think could benefit from this, please feel free to do that. And thank you for being a part of Open Door. God bless you.